Good morning and welcome to the WEIM Governing Body session meeting. Please note that all attendees are muted until the public comment portion of the call, and we will provide instructions on how to enter the comment queue at that time. Closed captioning is available by clicking the caption icon at the bottom of your screen. With that, I'll go ahead and turn the call over to Chair Andrew Campbell. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Welcome to the December 12th meeting of the Western Energy Imbalance Market Governing Body. Thank you all for joining us in person and virtually today. Now I'll turn it over to Corporate Secretary Roger Collinson for the roll call.
Thank you, Chair Campbell. Go ahead with the roll call. Chair Campbell.
Here.
Vice Chair Konzioka.
Here.
Member Decker.
Here.
Member Prescott.
Here.
And Member Wagner.
Here. Thank
you. All present and accounted for. We have a quorum. And before I turn it back to you, Chair Campbell, let me just note with regard to the public comment process that for those that are in the building and physically present, that we do have comment cards for their use to fill out and turn in for us to for any public comments, whether it's for general public comment or specific items on the agenda. Additionally, as the operator noted, for virtual attendees, the operator will instruct the virtual attendees on how to enter the comment queue. And we would start with in person and then go to virtual comments from there as we move forward through the agenda on this and other hybrid meetings. And with that, we'll go to agenda item number 1. And since I am already speaking, I'll just ask, don't see anything in the room, but if we have any virtual general public comments, and this is for public comments for items not on the agenda today. So in other words, just general.
And operator, if you could please provide the instructions for people who are participating virtually. Thank you.
If you are on Zoom, please press the raise hand icon at the bottom of your screen to enter the comment queue. If you are dialed into our phone-only line, please press #2 on your telephone keypad to enter the queue. There are no hands up in the virtual queue at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. So next we have the decision on the minutes from the September 19th, 2023 Governing Body General Session meeting.
Thank you, Chair Campbell. Can we have a motion to approve the September 19th, 2023 WEIM Governing Body General Session minutes?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, governing body members. The motion passes.
All right, thank you. So now we're about to go to the CEO report, but before that, I just want to make a couple remarks. As we approach the end of the year, I'd like to celebrate how significant this year has been in the Western energy imbalance market, particularly from my vantage point on the governing body. I know other folks have their own list of notable developments in this past year in the market. But first and foremost, the EIM market has continued to generate tremendous benefits for the 80% of Western consumers in balancing areas that have joined the market. Consumers are seeing lower costs, improved reliability, and better environmental results. We've also seen the market rules continue to evolve in response to stakeholder requests. The new energy assistance mechanism, which was in effect this year, is an example of something that was really driven by stakeholder requests and just shows how this is a market that will be refined over time as the world around us changes and as people get more experience with it. And then, looking back almost a year ago in this room, February 1st, the ISO Board of Governors and the EIM governing body came together and we jointly approved the extended day-ahead market policy. The policy came out of countless stakeholder workshops, written comments, and meetings. Numerous studies have estimated the significant economic and reliability benefits that this day-ahead market can produce. The first balancing authorities committed to join the market within the past year, and we hope to see FERC action on the tariff very soon. That same day, February 1st, the joint governing bodies were presented with the consensus recommendations of the broadly representative Governance Review Committee. We unanimously adopted a governance structure that suits the upcoming day-ahead market. And then kind of just on the internal process side that we're so many of you are involved with on day in, day out. I mean, during this past year, ISO staff really responded to stakeholder requests and from requests from the governing body to increase stakeholder involvement in the early stages of the development process. It's already a very robust process, which has very open, lots of opportunities for involvement. There was really a call for more involvement at that early stage. And so we're going to hear, later in the meeting, updates on policy initiatives, including, or maybe future policy initiatives, including updates on the working group-driven initiatives and how that process is going. So in my view, the accessibility and openness of the policymaking process at the ISO really deserves special appreciation. It's real foundation for the success that we're having in these markets. It takes a lot of intentional focus and commitment. So I encourage all of you to please continue to bring forward your ideas to even further increase the access that you have to our policymaking processes. And finally, I just wanted to thank you to stakeholders, to the ISO staff, and to my colleagues on the governing body, and to the ISO Board of Governors for all of your efforts this year. It's really been a tremendous year. So now I'll turn things over to ISO CEO Elliot Mainzer.
Well, thank you, Chair Campbell, Vice Chair Kanzioka, and members of the WEIM Governing Body. I really appreciate your comments. Maybe I'll echo a few of those and add just a couple other things to them. But I wanted to start out by thanking all of you. It's wonderful to see you in person. I know we don't get to do this as often as we'd like to anymore, but wonderful to be here with you in Folsom. And just thank you for your just enduring support, engagement, the feedback that you've provided us this year. Also really appreciate the outreach that you do. I think just as you just emphasized, the importance of staying connected with all of our partners and stakeholders and allowing us, just bringing in an additional dimension of feedback and understanding. It's been just really enriched our ability to engage and improve our engagement with stakeholders this year. As you mentioned, 2023 has been a pretty amazing year. I remember back in this room back in February, as we moved into joint authority for EDAM, big milestones there. Also just so pleased to have 3 new EIM entities this year, which is wonderful to have WAPA, Desert Southwest, huge partnership there, El Paso Electric, Avangrid, and then of course just this last couple months to have the signing of an implementation agreement with BHE Montana, right? So actually having 2 generation-only balancing authorities participating in the Western EIM, just another great example of innovation and technical skill. So really appreciate those partnerships. And as you mentioned, as we get here towards the end of 2023, I think we've probably crossed that $5 billion cumulative benefit threshold, right? And that's a meaningful amount of consumer savings and environmental benefits at a time when every single one of us is working hard to bend the cost curve, right? Affordability is a critical issue, but I think we all know that maybe the 2023, I think if there was a single theme across the West this year, it was reliability. And that probably more than anything is the thing that holds us all together. And I just hearken back to, August of this year, again, another challenging summer, the tables turned a little bit, not as much of a, not kind of a different perspective here in California, relatively modest temperatures, epic snowpack, things like that. But this was a year when other parts of the West were struggling. And I think we saw, again, the emergence of the WEIM as a key tool in support of reliability and resilience. And again, just another very pragmatic reminder of the value of leveraging the significant transmission connectivity and resource diversity that exists across the WEIM footprint. That, of course, remains the central organizing principle and the central thesis of the extended day-ahead market, building on that footprint, building on those partnerships, building on those relationships, and continuing to deliver reliability and economic and environmental benefits for electricity customers. Really, that's what it's ultimately all about. So we're obviously all super excited to see if we hear from the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission by the end of the year. We'll let them decide that, but obviously, and waiting to hear on the ruling on EDAM and the day-ahead market enhancements, and of course the SPTO model, and just very excited to continue making progress together as we move into the implementation phase on EDAM and continue to deliver economic reliability, environmental benefits to the customers we serve. So thank you again for all of your support, and to everyone here and online today. Just wanted to really express my heartfelt appreciation for your partnerships and collaboration, making 2023 a very successful year. And I hope everybody gets a chance to read the year in review for 2023 that we just posted a couple hours ago on our blog website. So please take a look at that. So thanks again. That concludes my update.
Thank you, Elliot. So now we're going to hear an update from the Body of State Regulators. With us virtually is Haley Williamson, Chair of the Public Utilities Commission of Nevada and Chair of the Body of State Regulators.
Thank you, Chair Campbell. Good afternoon, and good afternoon, Vice Chair Kanzioka, members of the Western EIM Governing Body. It's great to be with you all, even virtually, but it's nice to see you all in person there together for your last public meeting of 2023. There has not been a significant amount of activity since the last time I gave you an update, so this will be fairly brief. The last update I gave was November 8th. The BOSSR since then has held its final meeting of the year last Friday, where we had the Department of Market Monitoring provide the BOSSR members with an overview of the emergency events that took place on the system in July. Mark Rothleader with CAISO Management then followed and provided a further explanation in detail on behalf of the ISO. It was extremely informative, and we thank both the DMM and the ISO for being there. We really look forward to inviting back the DMM and the ISO to future monthly meetings to discuss other relevant market issues concerning the WEIM. The BOSSR also continues to be briefed on the various pre-initiatives activities that are underway at the CAISO. As I mentioned last month, we are currently working to understand the intricacies of the GHG Coordination Working Group, as well as the Price Formation Enhancements Working Group. As these working groups seek to define the issues, the BOSSR will continue to monitor their early stage developments and provide feedback when the BOSSR deems necessary. Additionally, the BOSSR is monitoring the ISO's RA Modeling and Program Design Working Group, the progress of EDAM, transmission service and market scheduling priorities, and WEIM RSC enhancement policy initiatives. Like I said, this would be fairly brief since we just gave an update. So that concludes my report today. I want to thank you all again for having me, and happy to try to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions from governing body members? Okay, seeing no questions, thank you very much, Chair Williamson. Okay, next we'll hear an update on the Regional Issues Forum from the RIF Chair, Josh Walter from Seattle City Light.
Great. Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Campbell and members of the governing body. The Regional Issues Forum last meeting of 2023 was held yesterday at CAISO's campus, where the agenda included the RIF roundtable discussion on CAISO's policy initiative roadmap, largely focusing on the process and schedule associated with review and input to CAISO's policy roadmap. As a reminder, this was an element associated with the Governance Review Committee's recommendations at the end of their process. So looking forward to that that conversation and topic in the new year, currently scheduled for the RIP's first meeting of 2024, associated or in conjunction with or piggybacking off of, I'm not sure exactly how to characterize that, on March 18th, the day before the governing body and Board of Governors meeting in the new year. That was followed with the bulk of the conversation in the meeting focused on two panels, transmission related. The first was focused on interregional transmission planning impacts on Western markets. And the second was focusing on interregional market benefits in the studies that have been ongoing from different potential market participants across the West. Finally, we had a conversation speaking to the evolving role of the Regional Issues Forum, where a number of issues and items were taken up associated with how the RIF can continue to add value to the governing body and the governing body's decisional processes. So I look forward to continuing to work through those issues with the RIF liaisons and with the RIF community as a whole, the stakeholder community as a whole, in assuring that the governing body has the appropriate level of inputs and is meeting the expectations set forth in the RIF and its goals. I wanted to finish with making one last observation or one last point of information. There will be at least one identified new RIF liaison in the new year. Alex Spain from Bonneville, representing the federal power marketing sector, is rolling off the RIF, and a new RIF member will be appointed shortly. I believe that public meeting is scheduled, and the new RIF liaison member should be announced before the end of the year. That concludes my comments associated with the Regional Issues Forum, and I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you, Josh. Any questions from governing body members? Member Decker.
So I don't have a question, but I do want to make a comment about yesterday's meeting. Again, I think the RIF did a really great job of establishing a very strong agenda, really good presentations, and I really want to applaud the RIF and the work that they're doing and to help get other RIF members to continue to get involved with the RIF and the things that you highlighted in terms of the evolving role of the RIF, I think is really important. And I hope that message gets out to other people who should be engaged with the RIF process.
Yes, absolutely. I think the idea of continuing to communicate within our sectors and amongst our sectors is an important part of making sure that we're meeting those expectations as mentioned earlier.
Thank you. I wanted to add to that my appreciation of coordinating the meeting with our meeting. It was great to be able to be there in person for the meeting. And also just a general shout out both concerning RIF and Bosser. These are excellent. The programs are really valuable, I find, just in terms of just educational value. I think both groups are collections of people who are trying to just learn stuff, figure it out. So I found the RIF agendas as well as Bosser agendas to be really worthwhile places to show up and listen in. Okay, well, thanks, Josh.
Thank you, Chair Campbell, and maybe to just make a point on your first comment. It has been helpful in planning RIF meetings associated with the governing body meetings. We are making efforts to plan our meetings for all of 24 early in 2024 for travel related purposes and planning. So we like the liaisons at this point, like the model of being or close to governing body meetings. The one small wrinkle, which is not a huge wrinkle at all, but one potential difference is we've also found success in having some level of attachment to the CAISO symposium. It is a symposium year, so that could add some level of a difference in kind of the newer schedule and cadence of having a roughly quarterly meeting that coincides with a governing body meeting. So we'll work to continue with that thread and possibility for future meetings.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. Yeah, it makes sense to coordinate with other large gatherings of the similar or the same population. Thank you. So now we'll go to agenda item 6, the briefing on policy initiatives. And this will be introduced by Anna McKenna, Vice President of Market Design and Analysis at the California ISO.
Thank you, Chair Campbell. I have the pleasure today of introducing Becky Robinson, our newly minted Director of Market Policy and Development. Becky's been with the ISO for almost a year, but most recently has taken on the great challenge of leading our market policy development group. It's a great honor for me to present her today. And she will be taking you through kind of sharing with you on a number of stakeholder initiatives, as Chair Campbell noted, some of the current ones and also some upcoming initiatives and work that's on our table. And with that, I will turn it over to Becky.
Thank you, Anna. Good afternoon, members of the governing body, Chair Campbell. It's a pleasure for me to be with you here today and give you this update on our policy initiatives at the ISO. Is this better? Okay. All right. Thank you. Next slide, please. So first up, we've got our flagship items that Elliot has already mentioned. We're eagerly awaiting FERC order on our extended day-ahead market and day-ahead market enhancements items. So not a whole lot here to update since last month, except that we are now in the month of December, of course, and we had filed our tariff at FERC back in August and asked for an order by December 21st. We are hoping and expecting to see something then. We haven't heard anything to suggest that we won't see an order then, but we'll see. In the meantime, of course, we're continuing implementation activities with our folks who have expressed interest in joining EDAM, committed to join EDAM, Pacificor, and the Balancing Authority of Northern California. We are continuing to plan for some implementation working groups in 2024. I think these will be in the later part of the year after we get some of the code from our vendors so that we can really kind of step into that market simulation environment and test the new market functionality with stakeholders in that coordinated way. And again, this is all marching towards a 2026 implementation date. Next slide, please. Thank you. So next up, we've got our transmission services and market scheduling priorities, otherwise known as wheeling or wheel-throughs. On this item, you will recall that just over a month ago, at the end of October, we did get an order from FERC approving our filed tariff amendments on the wheel-throughs. The approved design provides for how we're going to calculate available transfer capability, or ATC, on the system, and the process for how market participants can establish market scheduling priority to kind of get first in line to use that ATC. We are also kind of continuing to work on that phase 2 of the wheel-through effort that will focus on providing for getting wheel-through priority on a longer-term basis, so for 1 year or more. But and we're targeting FERC filing in January for that. Anita, did I see your hand go up?
You did. So I wanted to go back to bullet 2 in
yes,
terms of the ATC and like when will there be something that our stakeholders can actually see as like what's going to be available so that they can do some of their own planning as they get into looking at 2024?
Yes, absolutely. So, right, since that October 30th date when we got the order, we have been working on moving forward towards implementing the approved tariff, the approved design, right? So we have hired a vendor to design and develop a platform for receiving and processing the requests for ATC. To establish that priority. And our teams here at the ISO are working closely with the vendor to refine the implementation and timelines of that functionality. We recognize this is a sensitive topic and folks are thinking about the summer already, right? And we've got load serving entities across the West that want to make supply arrangements for that timeframe. And knowing, having certainty about wheel-through capability or not is an important piece of that. So, as I said, we're working with the vendor on creating that automated functionality. Because that's not yet available, that automated calculation of ATC, we are, in the meantime, taking the steps to manually calculate the available transfer capability at the ISO interties. And we hope to make that information available as early as January so that we can get that information out there, market participants can see it and respond to that. And at that time, we would also start taking requests for reservations of the ATC to establish that priority. And we would just process those manually. In that meantime, yes, Anita.
So sorry, I just want to, when you say January, I mean, that's like 3 weeks away. So I just want to put a fine point on what does January look like, just so stakeholders can manage their expectations.
Yeah. Anna, do you want to take that?
Yeah, no, I think maybe I can provide a little bit of color in that. Obviously, as Becky was noting, the manual process is a way of providing some additional visibility on what's available transmission for the summer months. And so providing that information in the January timeframe is really, really critical so that folks can get an idea of what would be available in the forward months. We're also striving, and it's, you know, it's a bit of a unknown right now exactly when that can happen. However, as soon as possible, we're striving to have the ability to also make those nominations as early as possible for participants to do so. We are in the midst of evaluating our ability to do that, you know, that leg of it. But it is something we're striving to do so that folks can start making those reservations as early as possible in the year. That said, we're very confident about the April timeframe and the automation going in within that timeframe, and allows folks to then get that stuff in for the, you know, subsequent months.
Anna, thank you, Rebecca.
Anna, just you said April timeframe for automated visibility?
For the full-blown automation aspects of that, we're still feeling pretty good about the April timeframe.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Appreciate those questions. All right, next up on the policy initiatives, we've our energy storage enhancements initiative. This is one where we just giving you an update on kind of some of the implementation efforts associated with that sort of past policy development effort. So we had our energy storage enhancements track 2. We had some of that was the final piece of that was successfully implemented in a fall software release. The elements of that were released then included state of charge exceptional dispatch functionality and settlement, co-located resources, aggregated capability constraint, and a state of charge consideration of regulation. And on that last point, the state of charge consideration of regulation, this was, I think, an example of a very positive interaction with stakeholder community where we were tuning the details to implement the overall policy. Had a couple of workshops and interactions with stakeholders on that as we got closer to that implementation date of November 1. And as of November 1, we've seen a successful inclusion of, you know, considering regulation awards in the day ahead market so that you're not giving resources more awards than you expect they can deliver on. Based on, you know, expectations about how regulation awards impact state of charge. And so to date, we're doing a phased ramp in. So for the month of November, we were sort of using 25% of kind of that expected regulation impact. Month of December, it's going to be 50%. And we're kind of ramping that in slowly to kind of make sure we catch if there's anything unexpected. But so far, so good. We haven't seen anything unexpected or any untoward market results yet. So that's good news, and pleased to see that roll out. Next slide, please. All right, on the Western EIM resource efficiency evaluation enhancements, there's not a lot here to update on since our last meeting in November, but you know, you may recall we had our RSE enhancements phase 2, which implemented the assistance energy transfer capability. Again, last summer we did see a few folks use that, which we thought that was, you know, good to have that functionality in place. There are some additional enhancements we are still need to implement on that phase 2 effort that have to do with aligning market results with e-tags. That has shifted to a spring software release, but that is still, we're still progressing towards that. And then we do still have plans for a resource efficiency enhancements phase 3 effort in 2024 that we would kick off. We are still working on and planning what the scope of that would be. Again, thinking about lessons learned from this summer, and that would be joint authority to come to the board and governing body.
Becky, question for you on this subject. You're great. We were informed before that 5 BAs elected to utilize the emergency assistance or the assistance energy. Have you received any other further feedback from them or anybody else? One is from the 5 who utilized it, that they thought it was valuable. They'll likely utilize it again, or from those who didn't, that they still see value and that they might likely do that. I just was curious, because there was a lot of debate prior to this as to how much emphasis should be placed on including this. We were very supportive of this being part of the initiative. And I was just curious as if that trend is still in that same path, or if you've received any other information.
I have not. I'm looking around the dais at my colleagues to see if Anna, do you have any?
Yeah, I would say we haven't received any explicit information to remove it. I think so. I think there's right now we're standing to continue to have it for next summer as well. But we haven't received that much particular feedback, if you wish. And we know we see that there was participation, as we noted, and we definitely want to keep it in for next year.
Okay, thank you.
Member Decker.
So Rebecca, on the last bullet there where it talks about things for the phase 3 that were lessons learned, is there 1 or 2 things that are specifically in the lessons learned category, or is that you still need to kind of scrape that?
I think there were a few specific things from the lessons learned over the summer. I think one that comes to mind is it gets a little bit nerdy, but the interaction between the HASP and the 15-minute transfers of the EIM run, and how the system was seeing more capacity and more megawatts in the HASP. That then when you got closer, when you got to the 15-minute increments, those megawatts sort of seemed to disappear a little bit. And so I think that interaction between HASP and the 15-minute, between the hour ahead and the 15-minute transfers is one that seems ripe for looking into in that effort to kind of chase down. Sure. All right, next up, we have a new initiative on our reliability demand response resources, minimum runtime or minimum on time, where this is, we've started a very narrowly scoped policy initiative to change what is currently a 1 hour, it's sort of in the tariff that it can be no longer than a 1 hour minimum runtime for these reliability demand response resources. And as a reminder, these are our in-market demand response resources, such as large industrial loads. And so we did call on these resources this summer, for instance, and some of the feedback we got from that was that some of those resources said, hey, it's 1 hour is really not capturing the characteristics of sort of my demand response resource, right? I can't just turn off for an hour and come back on the next hour. And so we have started this narrow policy initiative. It's really just about that minimum runtime. And, we think that there is benefit in allowing those resources to more accurately reflect their characteristics of what the implications are for when we call on them. We do, appreciate having those programs, those demand response programs. They're a resource that we call on, right, when we need them. And so we think they're valuable programs. And the third bullet here is that, we think that by doing this effort, maybe we will prevent a rollback of kind of the operational dispatch order of these RDRRs that was directed by the PUC, where we can call on them earlier now than we could have in past summers. And so this is an effort where we have done, a good amount of outreach with stakeholders, and we expect positive reception to that. We do, we see this as this would be a proposed decisional classification of joint authority, and it is on a fast track effort. It's a fast track effort where we would be planning to bring that to the Board of Governors and governing body in February of next year, because we would like it in place for next summer.
I think Member Prescott has a question.
Yes.
Hi, Becky. The question I've got is, these are resources, it's my understanding, that can be bid into the market by any EIM entity. Mm-hmm. And so these rules would apply. So I agree with the joint. But my question is, has any of the entities outside of the ISO used this? Is it? I'm just curious.
My understanding is that the resources to date are all in the ISO BA, but I think there are some conversations going on with some WEIM entities about their, interest in perhaps signing up for this type, using this aspect of the tariff.
Thank you.
Member Wagner.
Becky, I just wanted to understand a little bit more. So right now it's a 1 hour minimum. What are you hearing feedback as the optimal for those entities providing the service?
That's a great question. I think the sense I've got is that 1 hour is just too short and they would like something longer. I think from the ISO's perspective, we sort of see a little bit of an upper bound for purposes of being dispatched in the real-time market, because our real-time market, I think, has is it 255-minute look ahead? I could get that wrong, but basically, if you make the minimum runtime longer than that, then the real-time market's not going to be able to sort of see the resource and be able to dispatch it. But up to that point, the real-time market can consider it as a resource that can, sort of come on and be on sort of dispatched in that real-time time frame. So that's sort of the area that we're looking at is sort of between that 1 hour and that sort of horizon of the real-time market.
Thanks. And could you explain a little bit more about the rollback of preferred operational dispatch order directed by the CPUC? What does that mean?
Yeah. So I think that basically we used to not be able to call on these demand response resources until, was it EEA 3? EEA 2. Thank you, Joanne. But the CPUC made a decision, agreed that we could call them earlier as soon as an EEA watch. And so we like that change, right? We appreciate that change of, being able to not wait until you're sort of well into an emergency before being able to call on these resource adequacy resources, some of them. So that's what we're getting at there.
That's great. Thanks.
Okay. Right. Move. Oh.
Member Decker, do you have a?
Yeah. So, Member Wagner, that was really key to ask that question. And I think it would be helpful if maybe that was more plain language in the slide deck. So it's more clear like what that is. Because that's a good point. It was a great.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And yes, thank you for all the questions. All right, next up, we've got our rules of conduct enhancements effort. You may recall that back in September, you all approved a kind of rules of conduct enhancements reforms, phase 1 of reforms. We are working on developing that tariff language and targeting a January FERC filing with an aim to implement that in April 1 of 2024. This relates to some of the penalties about meter data and so forth, where we had heard some concerns from market participants, and we're working through that. We have kind of been thinking about some phase 2 enhancements. Those are, we've had a little bit of an update since this presentation was put together, but we're kind of continuing to think about those and our ability to deploy those improvements. And just kind of the timing of when that would be ripe and the appropriate time to roll those out and to work those issues. These are a little bit more internal driven, the phase 2 items. So we're glad that we got that phase 1 work kind of put together and are expecting, to move that forward to FERC soon. But we'll circle back on the phase 2 efforts in coming months as we get more clarity on kind of what those are. Yes.
Becky, I had a question on this. If I'm remembering right, there was an issue that had to do with kind of increasing the transparency or visibility of some of the market participants so as not to see if their sort of financial condition is deteriorating. Is that an issue that is, am I remembering that right? And is that kind of something that's part of this phase 2 scope potentially?
I might phone a friend if on that question.
Are you asking whether the phase 2 includes some additional measures for that, or?
Yeah, my recollection from the phase 1 decision or policy was that there was a discussion of, there's some other issues we're going to get to later. And among those was an issue around kind of trying to prevent surprises of if there's sort of maybe I'm mixing up the cases to a different penalty case or something, but that there, don't want to be surprised if there's an entity out there that's a participant in the market that's kind of like in deteriorating financial condition.
There are basically 3 items in that second phase that we were focused on. One was the enhancements to what we refer to as demand response baselines, which have to do with the rules of conduct and behavior for the demand response resources. The other one, I believe, was to ensure that if there were penalties that were to be assessed, but the entities were going to request for waivers from FERC, why charge them if you have, you can't really, it's more of a, why charge them if there was then a risk that you would, have to pay them back. It's just an efficiency in that process. And there was an additional item, I believe, with regards to notification of potential issues. But the phase 1 did capture a good amount of those risks associated with surprises from what from what we did in the first run. The phase 2 was some additional refinements there, but I don't remember there being anything in terms of liquidity or concerns on, their ability to participate in the market per se. It was really enhancing those items.
You may be recalling the credit policy discussion.
Yeah, is that a different initiative?
It's a different one.
Yeah, okay, that's what I was thinking of. Yep. Member Decker.
So just really curious, phase 2 has been rescoped and renamed. What's the new name?
What did we decide to call that?
We're trying to make our, I don't remember it now. It's not on the slide, but we're trying to make our initiatives or stakeholder efforts names less based on phases, more based on description. So it's really reflecting the payment changes and what I just described. But I don't remember the name, honestly. It's a little bit long. So we'll make sure to have it in our next slide and update for you all. Yeah. There is this.
Okay, Dee Dee has informed us it is the second sub-bullet under the phase 2, the penalty enhancements, demand response, investigation, and tolling.
Yeah, that sort of describes what we're doing in there. So that is our goal. We're trying to get away from the various phases, which may not mean anything to folks over time.
We just have to remember the new name.
I think we should, we definitely need to make sure we get that right.
All right. Thank you for the questions. Okay, moving on into our working groups. So first up, we've got our price formation enhancements working group. And this one, as a reminder, it's a big umbrella. We've got at least 3 big topic areas keyed up under price formation enhancements: market power mitigation at a BAA level, scarcity pricing, and fast start pricing. And the latest update on those topics, we're continuing to work those issues and with stakeholders, thinking about problem statements, shaping those, doing a significant amount of kind of education on current scarcity pricing processes and so forth. And the latest on that is that we are having a conversation on fast start pricing with some analysis from our market performance and advanced analytics team to kind of look into what would implementing fast start pricing potentially look like in terms of pricing outcomes, pricing implications. And we know that's been a key topic that stakeholders have been interested in. We've got stakeholders who are, have very strong views on both sides of that issue. So there's hearty debate, as you might expect. And but we thought that analysis would be helpful to kind of give some color to that conversation. And that conversation is actually happening today. And we're planning, we have a market surveillance committee meeting planned next week to kind of continue that conversation. So on the topic of fast start pricing, to kind of get their expert views and voices in that conversation, you know, taking in the analysis and thinking about what does it show. And I should say as well, this is just sort of a first cut on the analysis. We wanted to iterate on that with stakeholders, because sometimes you start peeling the onion, you have more and different questions. So wanted to share sort of an initial cut with stakeholders, you know, and elicit more questions from them about, okay, what does this mean? Should we, you know, look into more versus do you need to kind of slice the data differently to get at what we're really looking for, something like that. So, you know, I think that would be a very interesting conversation today and next week with the Market Surveillance Committee as well. And we'll have plenty of more things to work on in the new year, I'm sure, to continue that work. All right, next up for our working groups, we've got our greenhouse gas coordination working group. And on this one, this is very much a, you know, looking at the ISO's current GHG accounting design, thinking about what we have in place for EDAM, and thinking about, you know, potential improvements or additional data that stakeholders would like to see. The teams are developing problem statements, which are focused on reviewing the market operations, sort of with the implications of that GHG accounting designs that we have. And considering that there are going to be multiple and different state GHG reduction policies that may have a price on carbon, but may be a GHG policy that is not a price. And then also thinking about emissions tracking, analysis, and accounting to support market participants who are complying with those different state policies. So that is all working towards a GHG action plan report to kind of inform a follow-on policy initiative. And on this one, you know, I just wanted to highlight that we have been trying to make more data available for stakeholders as they've sort of demonstrated, you know, interest and need for that data. In particular, we've got some stakeholders who are interested in an average emissions rate data, which is not something, which is, we put a lot of data out there already, but that particular item is one that we teed up for conversation with stakeholders at one of our working groups to kind of dig into a little bit more of how would you calculate that? You know, what assumptions would you make about storage, for instance, or demand response? Sort of different things, different ways you could go on certain elements of that, but really trying to get into what is given sort of potentially different needs or uses for that data, what would stakeholders like to see behind that calculation. And we have shared that, you know, an average emissions rate. We've put that together, sort of making some assumptions. We, you know, made that transparent to stakeholders what assumptions we were making. We put that out there for the, you know, for looking at past years, and we've committed to working with stakeholders on an ongoing basis going forward to create that data and make it available to them so that we make sure that entities that have GHG compliance obligations have what they need in order to be able to comply with those state programs. All right. Next up for our working groups, we've got the Gas Resource Management Working Group. And this is, again, kind of thinking about those frictions between day-ahead market participation and day-ahead gas procurement and nomination, and the timelines of how you make all that happen, and the same overlapping timeframes, which is really focused on kind of our new day-ahead market participants, but where we have these conversations that it can kind of share experiences from market participants operating in the CAISO's day-ahead market, sort of, you know, not sharing anything people shouldn't share, but just sort of in general, sort of talking through those issues and ways of managing sort of the uncertainty and, you know, financial commitments from both, you know, securing gas and getting electricity awards. And so this one has got some exciting language on the page that we are facilitating solution-focused working groups in December through February. We're excited that we're kind of in that solution phase in the working groups, and plan to publish an issue paper coming out of that. So on this one, the working groups, will continue to assess kind of the scope of the problem statements, potential solutions, with some preliminary data analysis. They'll kind of think through what are the existing processes and policies that we have, sort of thinking about our CAISO integrated forward market that we run today, and whether those are translatable into the EDAM context, whether changes need to be made. Of course, there's different gas pipelines out there in the rest of the West, different sort of storage or lack thereof opportunities, a little bit of a different landscape, but thinking through sort of what's translatable and where there might be gaps. And then, of course, prioritization of the problem statements.
Vice Chair Kanzioka has a question.
Becky, on this subject, one of the issues trying to overcome is that alignment between the gas and electric systems. And recently, there's been some additional efforts outside of even the West looking at this issue. So this is kind of even ahead of that part of the process. Have you had a chance to look at any of this? Is some of these efforts on trying to align gas and electric markets going to feed into this? Or is this just maybe going to get ahead of that and then look for solutions? I realize that's a pretty unfair question, but I was just curious if at this point in time, I know it's very fluid, is the reaction on what are we going to do here?
That's a great question. Are you referring to, is it a NERC effort that's just getting started up?
I think it's called Real Team or something.
Real Team.
I'm trying to recall the acronyms that was out there. I can get back to you on that one.
Okay. I know I have seen, some, that there are some efforts like that. Yeah, I'd appreciate if there's particular one you're thinking of. We may be thinking of the same one.
I'll follow up.
If I could, I mean, we do monitor those efforts. There's been a variety of gas electric coordination efforts over the years in the U.S. and elsewhere. I think this is more targeting more actionable things under the existing structure of the gas coordination and the gas market. As those other efforts evolve, we certainly will be monitoring and taking the opportunity to see if we can leverage those. But those are much larger global efforts.
So Mark, if I kind of understand it, then this would continue to proceed as it's been proceeding, work towards implementation of the solution however it comes out, and then as maybe another effort, a regional or national effort comes out, it may then require modifications at that point.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Thank you, Mark. All right. Next up, and our final working group to talk through, but I have a couple slides on it, is resource adequacy. So we've had a few RA working groups, as well as some workshops just on interoperability with the California Public Utility Commission's slice of day reforms as well. But the RA working groups are a bit broader than that effort. So they are, focused on, of course, principles, problem statements, and prioritization, and, with an eye towards issue papers to sort of kick off policy initiative efforts. Next slide, please. And we have sort of three overall stakeholder-shaped problem statements. The first is really focused on modeling and increasing the visibility and communication of the reliability of the ISO/BA through that modeling, and really kind of beefing up our modeling efforts and capabilities in-house at the ISO so that we can sort of do that holistic look at the ISO/BAA to evaluate it against a 1 in 10 loss of load expectation. The second of these the second focus here is updating our RA rules and our tariff rules to meet evolving grid and regulatory needs. This relates to things like our must offer rules and outages, things like that. Just kind of the those sorts of things. And then third, we have, there's some concerns about inequitable cost allocation among market participants in terms of contributing to meeting overall needs. And I'll say the working group effort was informed by both, internal observations, analysis, stakeholder feedback, both formal and informal, as well as some consulting services provided by Gridwell on current RA challenges and recommendations. If we could go to the next slide, please. So this is really kind of thinking about the resource adequacy working groups, what we're doing there as it relates to regional markets and the rest of the West and what's going on in the rest of the West. And so I really wanted to focus on that first focus that I mentioned on the last slide of the modeling efforts and our modeling capabilities. And we really see that as a key piece of sort of making the creating an apples to apples comparison of the ISO-BA and our ability to meet a 1 in 10 target and lessen potential frictions between RA programs. And so this is, this was something that came out of the Gridwell consulting analysis as well, really kind of creating this baseline of what does the ISO-BAA resource adequacy fleet look like? What does it enable us to do? And we're really, we're seeking interoperability, among different, between California and the Western Resource Adequacy Program. And we think that this will enable, we think that this kind of reliability analysis, this loss of load expectation study, that will be sort of a key Rosetta Stone piece between, to kind of make it more just where you can sort of look across and sort of see, looking at the Western Resource Adequacy Program and looking at the ISO-BA, comparing, between those things. We think that this sort of foundational reliability analysis will enable these programs to become more aligned over time. And so that's sort of what I would highlight for you as kind of the core piece of our work that we see is really foundational and fundamental to thinking about broader markets and regionalization.
Thank you very much, Becky. And before going to see if governing bodies have more questions or comments, I do want to provide an opportunity for public comment, which is something opportunity for this particular item. If operator, could you please instruct virtual attendees on how to enter if they'd like to make a public comment?
On Zoom, you can please press the raise hand icon to enter the public comment queue. If you are dialed into our phone-only line, you can press #2 on your telephone keypad to enter the comment queue. It looks like there are no hands up in the virtual queue at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm not seeing any hands up in the physical queue either. Vice Chair Kanzioka.
Becky, on the analysis portion, will that only focus on California? Because in the next bullet, that last bullet, it was, addressing the interoperability with the RAP program, and you mentioned to reduce the friction. And I was just curious as to how that analysis, helps to do that. Because I thought there was on a preliminary basis recognition that there would be interoperability with the proposed EDAM tariff with the RAP program. So will this further help in identifying what that friction is or how much it is, or is it only dealing with California?
So I think the analysis would be focused on the ISO-BAA, which covers several different RA programs, as a reminder, yeah. Right? So it's not all under the PUC's RA program, different local regulatory authorities. But I think, so from an analysis perspective, I think that's where we view our, the opportunity for our expertise, where we really have the visibility into those resources. I think but to your point, how is this reducing friction? I think we, expect that the Western Resource Adequacy Program is also kind of looking at their resource fleet through a 1 in 10 loss of load expectation kind of modeling exercise, which is something that the ISO, we have not done in the past. And so we're kind of getting on board with that being the yardstick, if you will, that we want to use, that we think, because it's this, kind of at bottom, it won't be one entity doing the analysis for both of these, but it'll be sort of at bottom the same type of analysis with similar sets of assumptions.
If I could, so it's to help demonstrate that it would be consistent with what others outside of California are expecting, and show that there's alignment between the approaches?
I think so,
okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
If I could add, I mean, there are interplays between the LOLE analysis. You have to make some assumptions about imports, exports, right. And that's one area of coordination that we could be making with RAP about those assumptions to make sure we're not over assuming or aligning the assumptions at least. And I know we referred to the Rosetta Stone and the LOLE analysis. I think the Rosetta Stone kind of crosses over this analysis, but also in terms of, at least in EIM and EDAM, the sufficiency evaluation itself as also being a Rosetta Stone to bring different programs together for an evaluation on a daily basis and an hourly basis.
Okay.
I was going to just add one more thing to your question with regards to the interaction with EDAM. We did take some special, considerations in the EDAM design to ensure that the RAP members can operate within the EDAM and the RAP process. And we'll always continue to look at that as we go forward and actually work our way towards closer implementation. But this effort is on the resource adequacy working groups, really focused more on the reliability assessments to provide that, as Mark and Becky have noted, that sort of comparability of where the systems are at, and making sure that folks who operate across the boundaries of the balancing authority areas have indices that they could look at to to ensure that they have sort of comparability of products and understanding how resource adequacy works across those systems.
Okay. Thank you. All.
Any other questions or comments from governing body members? Okay, seeing none. Becky, thank you very much. These presentations are very helpful to just get a snapshot overview of these important efforts. Thank you. So now we'll go to item number 7, which is informational reports. You'll see there's 4 of them attached to the agenda packet. Department of Market Monitoring update, which I'll just mention there. They've been doing some great work, important work looking at the quantile regression model and how that is kind of playing out as part of the flexible ramping product. I've appreciated digging into that a bit. A market performance update, a market surveillance committee update, a policy initiatives update. Any governing body questions on any of these items? Vice Chair Kanzioka.
Yeah, I see we're already kind of past time, so I don't want to dig into this, but I do want to just inquire about some of the items addressed in the Department of Market Monitoring report, and kind of goes back to the more detailed discussion we had back in September on the quantile regression. And my inquiry is, I'm not sure who I should direct it to. Is this being looked at further? And, and is this something that maybe we can get a report back on or dig into it at a future meeting?
Yes, I'll take it for the team. Okay. Yes, since the DMM actually, had some input and recommendations with regards to the performance of the quantile regression and ascertaining that uncertainty, both for use in the FRP, the flexible ramping product, and the resource efficiency evaluation. We have actually been taking some measures to take a little bit of a deeper dive into what are the drivers of some of the concerns that were raised. And we're looking to provide some additional visibility. We actually had a day-long meeting with the Market Surveillance Committee, not a day-long on this topic alone, sorry, but during one of their day-long meetings, we spent some time with them. They also raised some concerns around that. So we're definitely looking and taking a deeper dive into that. And I think it would be, we'd be more than happy as we get closer to sort of some conclusions in this area to provide you a follow-up on that.
And a thank you. And then Chair Campbell, I'll just maybe, whether it's, the February meeting or subsequent meeting, maybe that would be there. I'm not sure what the appropriate time frame would be, as we can maybe schedule this as an agenda item.
Okay, thank you. And that segues into our final item, item 8, which is future agenda items. So put that down on the list. Any other suggestions of future agenda items from governing body members? Okay, seeing none, thanks everyone else for being here virtually and in the room. And yes, I see Member Decker.
So just in terms of future agenda items, again, looking at the progress on the ATC, just an update on where we're at with that.
Happy to do so.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you, everyone. With that,
we can adjourn.
We're adjourned.
Thank you. Thank you, governing body. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.